Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
And welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Today, we are talking about fresh starts. I want you to think about that. A fresh start. You ever realize that a fresh start, it does sound fresh. It sounds like a great, oh, look what we have ahead of them. But think about this. How often do you find yourself or you know people that life is going just the way they planned? Everything is just fantastic, that they are just living the life that they had dreamed of, and they all of a sudden said, you know what? I think it's time for a fresh start. Well, you don't, because fresh starts happen to people. It's usually the result of something that has happened that is unexpected, something that has happened that is probably not a positive or happy experience. A fresh start is something that people do when they don't see that there's an option. People are almost forced into fresh starts, but that's okay, because if they approach a fresh start the way that, you know, the possibilities are really beyond what they thought of, just recovering from whatever it is that happened to them. And today, my guest specializes in fresh starts. Her name is Rachel Bandara, and she helps women who are looking for that fresh start, whether it's in career, business, image, relationships, or life in general, to really develop an empowering, fulfilling, and authentic lifestyle that enables them to reach the potential that they know they are capable of, even if they feel that change isn't possible, or they may not feel that they have the strength to take it on, because something has happened and something very significant in their life has happened, and that has pretty much forced them into that fresh start. And Rachel is someone who is very, very good at taking that fresh start beyond those expectations and really making it the most of what it can be. So with that, I want to welcome to the show Rachel Bandara. Rachel, thanks for being here on Influencers Radio.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know what? And am I right with the fresh start? Do people generally choose to do the fresh start, or is it something that they're kind of thrown into because of circumstances have changed drastically in their life?
I think you're absolutely right, Jack. Most people do get thrown into it, and it can be quite unexpected. There may be a very small portion that might choose to go, look, I'm doing well, but I need to do a bit better. But most of my clientele is, of course, people who got thrown into a situation and they are desperately in need of a fresh start.
Now, you know, I talked about when I was introducing you about, you know, whether it's career, business, but let's talk about some of those circumstances that really change. We're talking about divorce, and not something where people saw it coming for years. A lot of times your clients, it's something that was unexpected, came out of left field. Job loss, you know, that surprise layoff, that they're no longer where they thought they were going to be for many, many years, and whether that's job or relationship. So it's a sudden loss or change in circumstances. But I know it's so much more. Let's talk about that a little bit and how that can affect people when these circumstances do change so dramatically and so instantly.
Absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned two situations, going through divorce, you know, everything's going well, or you think it's going well, and then the divorce comes, and or you get laid off. from a job that you took a lot of pride in and put a lot of effort into. When these things happen, it brings with it such a huge impact on your personal life. Some of us may not admit it, but the impact that it carries is quite big. So what people find when they're in these situations is that they lose their identity, their very identity about who they are, what they stand for, what is the purpose in their life, and what are the next steps. So all of this gets thrown absolutely out the window, and they feel lost and helpless, and it's a terrible place to be.
And I think that's a really important point, and I never really thought about it, until I was, looking into how you help these people. And it really is, if you look at it at a shallow level, you think, well, they are going through a divorce. The solution is find another relationship or fix the relationship that they were in. Or if they lost a job, well, the solution is to find another job or find another source of income. But you just mentioned it. It's how tightly it's tied to their identity, because when people get divorced, it's not just they're out of a relationship. They're no longer Mrs. So-and-so. They're no longer the wife of Mr. So-and-so. When someone loses their job, it's not just about loss of income. They're no longer, director of this or chief this. And people, you've kind of grown up in the society that's what you identify with. And so when you talk about loss of identity, that's something that is, gigantic compared to replacing income or finding a new relationship. So dig a little bit deeper in that identity and how important that is, and how much value people hold, place on that identity.
Absolutely. I think with that, you're right. If people have been doing the same job for a long time, and if they have been in the relationship for a long time, yes, they grow with that, and they start attaching their identity to that. I'm someone's wife. I do this. And if you go to a party, they might introduce themselves as, yes, I'm the director of such and such company. And their whole identity then starts getting built and getting strengthened on who they are. Now, when circumstances happen that forces them out of where they are, that is a mighty uncomfortable situation, and that they no longer have the context to define themselves. And when they are left like that, you get, I get what I call that is you get stripped down bare. You get stripped naked again to the absolute essential, quintessential you, who you are. Now, people have to often try and rediscover, go through a lot of different exercises to try and rediscover themselves when they lose their identity. So, it's a very challenging situation, but the good news about that is it's absolutely amazing when people do recover their identity, and it's absolutely very possible, and I have seen hundreds of people do it. So, yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah, and I think when people are put in that situation, they're probably overwhelmed with emotion, and I guess overwhelmed, just period. I guess that's probably one of the big things that you see in people is they're overwhelmed because when they're stripped of that identity, it's not just they don't know what to call themselves, so that they're just lost, and I mean in probably the truest sense of lost. And with that identity that they had was not just something they called themselves. I'm sure a great deal of the confidence that they may have carried in life was also tied to that identity. Have you found that confidence plays a big part, and that's a big piece of what's lost, that they have just completely lost or lack confidence because of that identity loss?
Yes, you're absolutely right again, Jack. Confidence is a huge thing. when there's a lot of change happening in people's lives, confidence seems to be one of the first things that takes a lot of beating, and it goes out the window straight away. Whether in a relationship situation or job situation, once your confidence takes a dive, then you start questioning your very identity and who you are, what you stand for. And yes, when clients do come to me in that first session, it's very much an overwhelmed, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do and where to go from here. Or, look, I've been confident for a very long time in this, and now I know I need to make a change, but I have no idea where to start. And that's where the fresh start comes in, Jack.
Yeah, and I'm sure that at that point, they've probably worked through a few issues that they even recognize that that's the position that they're in. I guess there's a lot of different, probably far beyond my comprehension in psychology. And I know you're more versed in this than I am, that the point of recognition that this is where I am, rather than just thrashing and panicking. They're probably still in a state of panicking, but how important is it for them to recognize that this is where they are and what's happening, to enable them to say, okay, the fresh start, this is where we start changing things? Right.
So I think when people are going through change or are in a place of needing a fresh start, they don't usually see what they need to do, and they are in that state of overwhelm, and they might be questioning themselves, not sure about who they are anymore. And when you're in that position, it's very difficult for someone to just go, right, this is what you need to do. Do this 5 steps, take it home and do that and you'll be fine. It doesn't quite work like that. That's because, especially if you're questioning your identity, that needs to be dealt with first. And when I say deal with, it means helping you establish who you are, who your authentic self is. Maybe the job or the role that you were playing was not exactly fit for you. So it could be a blessing in disguise, the situation that you're in. And, most of my clients would find it difficult to believe at the start. But, when they work through it and when they start finding those hidden gems that they had inside that they hadn't paid attention to, such as, they could be a really gifted writer, but they put that aside to maybe become a housewife, or maybe to become a business analyst, or whatever role that they've chosen in life. That means sometimes in some situations my clients discover that, hang on, there's another part of me, and there are other gifts inside of me that I could discover. And all of a sudden they start to see possibilities, and that's exciting.
Well, yeah, exciting indeed. And I want to make sure that we don't gloss over this, because I think what you're talking about is so incredibly important. I think in part of why you're so good at what you do and the value of what you do is that you talked about being their authentic selves. And we hear that word a lot, being authentic, but I think yes, you really put you had a light that you shine on that when you say that perhaps their identity, let's figure out if the identity that you've been attached to for so long has been a role that you've been playing to conform, and that may not have been who you really are. Because a lot of people, I guess if you really want to boil it down to, a lot of people give up dreams in yes, part of their life in order to do what they think they are supposed to do, or be the person that they're supposed to be. And a fresh start, the way that you do this, it's not just about let's get back on track. No, let's take this and really make it fresh, and let's discover who you are really meant to be, and let's discover what you are really meant to do, which may not be getting back on that same track may not be the answer. Right? They may find a completely different path. I want you to talk about that, and maybe even if there's some examples where people were playing that role for so long, but then were able to rediscover this different authentic self that they were really meant to be.
Absolutely. So, number one, I mean, that's my story right there, because I'm a very creative person and, always have been very creative. However, I started doing a job that I thought was very good for me and has taught me some immense life skills. Don't get me wrong. So absolutely loved the job that I was in. However, once you're in something for too long, you start to believe that's where you're meant to be. And until, just like my clients, until I was forced into a situation where I had to question everything about what I stood for, I all of a sudden realized, hang on, I've pushed away my own creativity, my own authentic self away from me just so I could fit into a role. And it's amazing, like you said, it's totally so common, Jack, for people to fit into a role because society expects them to, because their background enforces their beliefs that they should be this or that. There's millions of reasons why they would choose to do that. But when people get forced into a corner, they all of a sudden start questioning and looking at things from a fresh set of eyes. You start realizing what you may have pushed away. And again, that may be a whole career or a whole different path that you were meant to walk in the first place. And that was for me with the coaching business. I mean, my goodness, it feels so right. And to give you some of the examples of some of the clients that I worked with. One of my clients, a lovely lady actually from Melbourne, she was about a size 26, I believe. And I know in US that's different sizes, but she's what you call she felt very large, let's say. And she was such a beautiful lady, but she came to me saying, look, over the years, I put on so much weight because every year I kept getting looked over for promotions at work, and people just wouldn't give me the time of day because I was a little bit chubby. And then because of that reinforced her bad habit. She just kept eating more, not exercising, getting into a bit of depression. And it's just a vicious cycle that you get stuck in. And every year she just, put on more weight. And when she came to me, she was in tears and she was saying, look, I have been stuck in the same position at work and I just can't get ahead. And I've come to this point where I look at myself and say, oh my gosh, who am I and what am I doing? And, I worked with her for actually only a couple of sessions actually. And she sent me an email. This was she sent me an email saying, Rachel, you won't believe it. I have started going to the gym and I have lost a little bit of weight and I have started, dressing up a bit more professional. I'm looking after myself. And also I'm getting considered for a promotion. And, this is a lady who hasn't been looked for a promotion for the last 7-8 years. And all of a sudden, after a couple of sessions, her perspective, her approach on life changed, and she started believing and tapping into some of that authentic, who she is, and started believing in that. And other people started sensing that too. So, yeah, there are many stories like that.
It really is incredible. And, when you talk about it being exciting, because this is where I think people aren't expecting, they come to you, or they reach this point thinking, I've got to figure out a way to get back. I've got to figure out a way to get back. And what, you're able to do is say, well, let's hold off. Maybe back isn't where you need to be. Yes. And, the fact that, when you talk about that being the exciting part, I can't imagine when that actually hits someone and they understand that concept that I may not be going back. And this is where, is this where they determine that, maybe this divorce, maybe this job loss was actually a good thing? maybe this is the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Do you see that this is a point where they may start recognizing this as something good or just tremendously beneficial to them versus being a tragedy that they thought it was?
Absolutely. And I can't even begin to describe how happy I feel when I see this point happening, the point that you just talked about, Jack. It's when people come and they think that they're coming to do the program, to do the coaching sessions, so that they can get back to their relationship or the job or do whatever they were doing before and just do better at that. But when you start working on finding out your authentic self and starting at that very bottom level and then working your way up from that, then people start to realize, oh my goodness, I don't need to go back. I don't need to go back to a job that I only mildly like or I might actually hate, even though it's making me good money. I don't need to go back to this relationship, or, I may have all these other possibilities in my business, or it's that point of realization when they look into themselves and see, oh my goodness, I have been about my life, quite narrowly focused on a certain part that maybe was what I thought was expected of me. And when they come to that realization, that freedom that they find when they realize, I don't need that. Actually, I'm going to do something new. And I feel empowered to do it because it feels so right with my authentic self and who I am. And all of a sudden, they're finding all this amazing courage, all these amazing coincidences in their lives that it's like everything's starting to fall into place. And that when a client gets into that place, it's like, oh my gosh, you can't stop them. They're off.
And then that right there, and I can't even imagine how truly rewarding that is for you.
Absolutely.
But it's at that point, I guess, that they realize that their identity, the confidence, is something that detaches necessarily from their identity, but now it's attached to them, realizing that they're able to be something more than what they thought. And you had another word, very powerful word, courage.
Yes.
Do you find that the discovery of this all of a sudden brings up or generates more courage than they may have recognized that they had in a long time?
Jack, it's the amount of courage that comes through from people at this point is absolutely life-changing. Like, obviously, this is why I'm in this. This is why I'm doing this coaching. This is why I do the programs with my clients, because all of a sudden they dig deep inside themselves and find this massive wells of courage that they never even knew existed. And all of a sudden, they are empowered to do whatever they want. And you talked about confidence, and I think I should really mention that, because people attach a lot of confidence into the different roles we play. And you find this a lot in my corporate life, in the commercial experience I've had. I've seen this a lot where people come to their work and, they're completely different to how they're outside. So it's almost like this massive role that they put on, the persona that they put on to be at work. And they start attaching confidence to that, and they're no longer comfortable being their authentic self. So what a massive change forces people to do is to actually, if their confidence has fallen apart, and that confidence was attached to a certain role, they start to look back into where the confidence should be attached to in the first place, which is your authentic self. And when your confidence is attached to that, you will find that no crisis, no tragedy, no change in circumstances can really shake you, because it's attached to who you are, not some kind of role that you're supposed to play.
Yeah, extremely, extremely powerful. Now, I want to dig in here because we've been talking kind of on a conceptual level. And I know one of the things that you see a lot are people that have gotten this conceptual piece from self-help seminars or programs, and that's kind of where it ends, I think. And then it kind of gives them maybe sometimes more damage than it does good, because when it doesn't work, when just that conceptual piece doesn't work, they feel like, well, I failed, this won't work for me. And I think one of the exceptional pieces that you provide and what you do is on the tactical side, which a lot of people miss, when they do self-help kind of seminars and things like that. So let's talk about the tactical side of this, because you do things that, some would view as being more clinical exercises, but then you also have some pieces that are more on the creative, holistic side. And I know different pieces work for different folks. So let's talk about the tactical pieces of this. I know that you do use data and information from very traditional tools like the Myers-Briggs test, right? So let's start with this clinical area and things that people may be familiar with. Like Myers-Briggs, do you find that there's data in there? And let's be clear that this is just data. It's not a solution. But do you find that the data that is provided by some of these more traditional tools gives you some really solid information that you're able to start discovering whether someone may not need to go back to what they were doing and may, in fact, need to discover what they were really meant to do?
Absolutely. So you mentioned Myers-Briggs, and that's been around for decades, and it's has about 4,000 researchers and papers done on it, with a massive amount of, support behind it, and proven results and research behind it. So it's one of those fantastic tools that's used by about 2 million people every single year across the globe. So it's a very, very proven and a very powerful tool. And how it really works especially for people who are looking for a fresh start, I guess, is it takes them as they are. There's a lot of psychological tests, clinical tests that gives people negative results, such as, oh, you are extroverted, or you're not very good at this, or you're not good at that. Myers-Briggs instead focuses on what are your preferences as a person. So if money was no object, if you weren't at work and you weren't influenced by anything on the outside world, what are your preferences? And that's really tightly related, Jack, to the authentic self that I was talking about, because it really gets down to the nitty-gritty of what would you prefer. And that maps out a picture that is so clear that some people are really surprised straight away about what their real preferences are in life and what their authentic self is compared to what they're living. So they all of a sudden have something that tells them quite visually that they might not be living their true authentic self. And that can be confronting for some, but for some it's really empowering and freeing, I guess. They start to feel freedom for the first time. And then they start their journey towards being a more authentic self. And yes, you did mention some holistic, more creative, more of the touchy-feely stuff. And, I have done this with some really hard corporate types. And it's always really good fun because people approach these sort of creative, softer sort of tools with a lot of skepticism, but these are probably the most powerful ones to change you, because they start to get you dreaming again. You mentioned, Jack, earlier that people give up their dreams, especially when they become adults and they get forced into roles in their lives. and they accept that as their reality. And all of a sudden, they've let go of their childhood dreams. And some of the tools that I teach and take people through are absolutely powerful in digging out some of those amazing dreams and giving shape to them and understanding what's behind them and seeing how you can take a step towards them and that it's actually possible. Because a lot of people think that's childhood stuff that no longer relates to me, or I don't know how to do that. And when people do lock into that through these tools that I offer, again, very powerful, very exciting, and people might start a whole new job or whole new career, whole new path, a whole new relationship, and they go into a level that they thought that they will never be. So it is very powerful stuff.
Right. And I think that's where, it comes in that you're able to take this data and help people interpret, without, I guess, without judgment or any kind of prejudice as to what they should or shouldn't be doing, but you just deal with the facts of where they are. I forgot the terminology you used, but it was really, really spelled it out that, here's the reality of where we are. So now let's start, building on that. And I think that is, certainly the time where they have to realize that, if this hadn't happened to me, this divorce hadn't happened, this, job loss hadn't happened, I may never have discovered this.
Absolutely. You might actually find yourself become quite relieved that you went through that, which sounds unbelievable, because, divorces and job losses are quite traumatic things to go through for people. But what I find is people actually are quite relieved at the end. Oh, my goodness. If it weren't for this, I would have never found myself. If it weren't for this, I would have never come across this other opportunity. So, yeah, it's absolutely right.
And do you feel that this might be the moment? And I know, you talk about how great it is to be there and witness this, but do you see that this is being the moment when that feeling of change isn't possible, or I just don't see how I'm going to have the strength to work through this, that those feelings start lifting when they start this realization?
Absolutely. One of the things that's really important to me, Jack, is that if someone is working with me and, when they go out back into the big wild world again, let's say, so they're no longer, they've completed the program, they've done the coaching sessions. When they go back out, they need to have that empowerment within themselves to be able to continue without me. So if something happens to me, God forbid, but my clients should be able to keep going and keep growing in strength, keep going to new heights. And that's the whole idea of the program, because a lot of traditional practices, and this is not a dig at traditional practices, but they are very, very coaching and counseling dependent, which means you're dependent on the client coming back to you time after time, month after month. Sometimes for years, you have to come back and keep going to weekly sessions. And, that to me is not a very empowering state to be. What is empowering to me is that the client is able to come and do a program, get out there, and now be empowered to walk the walk by themselves, as it were. So that part is really important to me. And yes, a lot of clients do find that they have everything they need now, especially because they've started at that very basic level of taking them as they are without any judgment. And that is quite a relief to people to start at that and to not be judged for that. And then they have the tools, they have the program, and they can go out there and be empowered to do what they need to do without being dependent on counseling and, weekly sessions, as it were.
Right. And well, one of the things that I think is important is, okay, it's one thing to discover, this authentic self, and and it is exciting, and it really does bring a very potent meaning to a fresh start. But that's not to say that it's going to be simple from that point, because you talk about something that afflicts so many people. And, just brought a smile to my face when I saw that you actually, deal with this situation, that you have people that are, you know what, I'm ready. I want to make a fresh start. I see a target now. I see potential. I see, opportunity where I didn't see it before. But then they get into that, I think you call it the cycle of perfection. That just this throws a big wrench in so many of our well laid out plans. And I think so many people recognize that they are excited. They jump into doing what they're going to do, and they're making this, but then it's got to be perfect. That perfection cycle. Talk about that perfection cycle and whether the myth, the reality of perfection, and how that can affect the progress of someone on this journey.
Absolutely. Now, at one point, I was the biggest perfectionist in the world myself. So this is very familiar grounds for me. And having been stuck in that perfection cycle is absolutely horrific, because you can stay there for years. And you think you're doing the right thing because, believe it or not, the society actually thinks it's a good thing to be a perfectionist. And there are certain rewards attached, especially in workplace. If you're a perfectionist, then yeah, that's a good thing, and you're rewarded for that. So there's a certain amount of importance that's attached to it. Again, certain amount of confidence and identity that might be attached to that, which explains why it's so hard for people to get out of the cycle. Because if they're conditioned to think that, hey, this is something that is really good, me being a perfectionist, I've got to get this right. I've got to do this perfect. If it's not perfect, then it's not worth doing it. And it's just the thinking like that leads people to be just stuck in that cycle, consistently doing stuff, being busy, but not actually getting results that they need. And a good example is, writing a book. Writing a book for some people is a lifelong thing. They can start to write the book and they will constantly nip away at it for years without actually getting it published. Now, the reason for that is perfectionism, right? And, there are other things like that. Oh, if I just do this to perfection, then I will be good. So it's that thinking is what keeps us stuck. And I do see that a lot as well. What is amazing about the authentic self and authentic identity work that I do is people all of a sudden find, hey, it's okay to not be perfect, which is a big revelation for a lot of people, because, like I said, society thinks being perfect is a good thing, but we're not meant to be perfect. We have our flaws, we have our differences, we have our different unique colors, ways of doing things, and that's what makes us who we are. And, because the work I do is without judgment, people all of a sudden feel that, my goodness, it's actually okay to be myself. It's actually okay to get my book published as it is. It's actually okay for me to get up and sing and do a recording and do an album, do whatever they've been dreaming of without just putting it off for another few years. So, yeah, it's amazing to see people stepping away from that perfection cycle.
Yeah, and almost where they accept the fact that it's not like it might not be perfect, but to kind of own the fact that this absolutely guaranteed will not be perfect.
Absolutely. Yes, you're absolutely right.
And that's okay. And that's one of the things that I love about what you do, is because obviously in the world of self-help, in the world of people that are in situations like this, easy answers are easy to find. Right. Yes. And you're very clear that, one, perfection's not going to be obtained. And two, that it does take real commitment, and it takes effort, and it takes an investment of time. It takes an investment of money, that it's not something that you read this passage, drink this potion, and everything's going to change. Right. And so do you think the people, to find, they want something to happen bad, but there's a lot of people that won't take that leap to make that investment of time or money to make this change and discover this about themselves. And what is it that they're missing out on when they just accept things the way they are, or they do their best to crawl back to where they were and thinking that is the answer?
Yeah, what they're missing out on is actually massive, because number one, they are thinking that, look, I've tried so many different things. I have read this book and I have drunk that potion, magic potion, and it didn't work. And like you said, some of these self-help things do more damage than good, because people think that, yes, if they do read that book, then everything will be fine. But, working on yourself actually takes time. We spend a lot of time working on a lot of other things in life. We work on our job. We spend an absolute massive amount of time in our job. We spend time with family, time with friends. So we spend a lot of time, and the world is screaming out for our time. So a lot of what we fail to do these days, especially in a really busy world, is that taking some time out for yourself to work on yourself. And that is such a huge challenge for people. Now, the amazing thing, though, is when people do decide, hey, I'm going to just set aside 15 minutes for this, and then I'm going to go on the program for this weekend or for these couple of days. And when they do make that time, it's far different to a self-help thing, because you're not really self-helping. You're not actually being told to read a book and all of your problems go away. It's about finding out where you are and building on from that. And I think a lot of clients all of a sudden see the reality, which is, hey, I am important and my time is important. And if I don't look after myself, then I can't be the best of me, and I can't give the best to my family, to my job. And, there's actually a Bible verse for that as well. It's you could gain the whole world, but you could lose your whole soul. You can gain the world, but you could lose your own soul. And that's where a lot of clients feel like they are at the moment. They're giving a lot to the outside world, but they're not giving enough for themselves. So when they set apart that time for themselves, then change can start to happen.
It's incredibly powerful stuff. That is really, really amazing. And how many people find themselves in these situations that they feel are unsurmountable. And, I think the opportunity to find someone like you that can help them through that is just tremendous. I want to find out, Rachel, what is it that led you to create a business around helping folks with this? I mean, because this is one of those things that, people, when they're younger, they everybody has a time in their life where they have this drive to help. And then just like we talked about, it gets kind of sidetracked with what they're supposed to do and earning a living and doing this. Mm-hmm. What is it that, and you talked a little bit about, kind of your journey and your story, but what is it that made you feel that I'm going to take what I've learned and apply to myself, and I'm going to make sure that this is something that anyone can apply when they're in a situation?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that you're right. It starts with my own journey, and I think it does for a lot of people who are out there doing stuff to help others. It is my own journey that sort of defined. Okay, so how do I get from where I am to where I want to be? Because I definitely relate to what my clients would go through, because I'm someone who's put away my creative side to be able to have a well-paying job and an enviable lifestyle that other people look at and go, wow, that's amazing. But not being fulfilled and not feeling like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, that's been nagging away at me for a very long time. And amazingly, this is such a common feeling. People just sort of become blinded to it, or they choose to push that away so that they can get on with their lives. And that's what we choose to do. And I've done that. Even though, like I said, my commercial job has taught me some amazing skills, lessons, and things that I actually use in my coaching for people to get results. What was really important for me was to tap back into that authentic self, which I have put away in the back burner, and to bring that out and let's be really honest with myself and see where do I want to be in life. And from a very young age, I've worked with other girls when I was younger in mentoring programs. And, as I grew up older in the commercial world, I ran mentoring groups for young ladies, young leaders, emerging leaders, that sort of thing. And throughout all of this, I could look back and see, yes, all of these situations, I'm literally in mentoring and coaching situations, no matter where I was or what my circumstances were. And that's when I finally realized, hang on, it's what I'm meant to be doing. And because it gives me such a sense of reward, sense of fulfillment, and to know that to have reached that feeling is an absolute amazing experience for me. And I think it's feeling that for myself on a daily basis that made me want to start a business and to help others to be able to get to that position themselves, to get on that journey themselves, because it's actually not about getting to a position. It's about this whole journey that we're on. Once you're true to your authentic self, the opportunities that open up to you are amazing. So it's because I've experienced that for myself, Jack, that I wanted to find a way how I can take people through the same processes I have been, refined for the last 8 years or so, and to help them take them through that.
Well, I think the results speak for themselves, and just some of the staggering transformations and discovery people have made about themselves, and even going in a direction they probably never even conceived of when this fresh start was thrust upon them. So I want to thank you for sharing this with others, and certainly thank you for sharing this with us on Influencers Radio. How can people find out more about Rachel Bandara and what you're doing and how they can get involved?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Jack, for having me on the show as well. It's an absolute pleasure to talk about something I really love and I'm passionate about. For anyone who's interested in finding out a bit more, they can go to www.rachelbandara.com, and you will be able to sign up for a certain program if you are interested in doing the program. Or if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, then you have the option to do that as well. So that website again is www.rachelbandara.com. All
right. Fantastic. I think just realizing that things don't have to be how they are. In fact, they could be quite different, and there's a whole new possibility is just tremendously exciting for a lot of people. So definitely check that out. RachelBandara.com. We'll have that on the show notes as well. Rachel, again, thanks for sharing this. It really is, I think you've proven why you are an example of a true influencer. So very grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Jack.
All right. Folks, there you have it. Check it out, RachelBandara.com. And until next time, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.